allowing the 65-year-old that maybe is a writer in their spare time, let them write a piece that maybe goes on the church website. It's not about giving permission. It's just providing space and saying, no, come in. This space is for you to create too.
We find that painter down the street who's got an art gallery, and then we try and fill them in a role. Like, you got to worship God here, but they are worshiping the God down the street in his gallery.
What's your full name?
Tunde Afolabi.
Can you please repeat that?
Tunde Afolabi.
You can draw some kind of biblical tether from musicianship and musical expression.
And so I feel like what we do is we go, okay, they're creative, so they either film on a camera and a live stream or sing in the choir or play in the band.
That's a really sensitive topic. I have many thoughts.
Well, welcome back to the Kingdom Creatives
Let's
podcast.
Go.
We're out here, Dallas, Texas, couple of Aussies and a Brit.
Hello.
This is Tunde, everybody. What's your full name?
Tunde Afolabi.
Can you please repeat that? No, do your best.
Tunde.
Hey, no, Tunde.
Tunde.
Emmanuel.
Afolabi. Nailed it.
Man, sorry to put you on the spot. No, we're out here in Dallas. We're not going to be looking this good on every podcast set. We just got finished with a
This
shoot.
is clean.
Yeah, it's very cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it'd be pretty cool to look like this.
We'll tour with this.
Yeah, we'll have fun.
How could it be?
So great to have you on, man.
Thank you,
and I appreciate you being with us. You're such a gentle soul.
Oh,
You're such a calming soul.
Appreciate it.
We met not too long ago, but I kind of feel like I've known you forever. But tell us about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do? How'd you get here today? And just let's riff, man.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Absolute privilege, honor, pleasure. So, gosh, where do I start? So my role, I'm series producer for the Alpha Youth series, working at Alpha International. Been there for about 3 years now.
Where are you living?
Living in London. From London, living in London. Typical sheltered city boy. Haven't lived many other places. But yeah, my background's in music. Was in the music industry for about 10 years, just over 10 years, doing touring musician, doing some studio stuff. And then, as the story typically goes, met a girl, wanted to settle down, needed something a bit more regular, a bit more predictable. And a friend of mine, another creative actually, a lady called Flo, she recommended me for this random job at this.
Did you know anything about Alpha or?
No.
Oh,
nothing.
No, but like
usually the case.
Like, bearing in mind, I grew up in church, but in a completely different expression.
What church did you go to?
So, I was born into a church called Shoreway Church. That's down in Peckham in London. But I actually spent most of my teenage years in a church called Commonwealth Church, non-denominational, kind of really small. I think at most maybe had like 100 people. Always went, after things of the Spirit. Coincidentally had incredible musicians move in and out of there my whole time there. So growing up, we'd have, people that would be backing singers for Adele or George Michael's guitarist. Anyway, I digress. Spent most of my time as a youth in church, but a world away from Holy Trinity Brompton, from the Anglican Church, and from Alpha. So
you just randomly got recommended to this job? Were you looking for work?
I was,
yeah.
But bearing in mind I had no experience. I spent most of my 20s on the road, came back. My degree's in civil engineering. Sorry, Mom. Never did it.
Hey, you might go back. Who knows?
I keep telling her.
There's always hope.
There's always hope. But yeah, I had no business kind of looking in the creative industry, at least that side of the creative industry. But yeah, she saw something in me, and the lady that hired me, Kath, who's coincidentally my boss again. So I got hired at HDB. She left. I moved over to Alpha, and then she rehired me at Alpha.
Awesome.
That's me.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so you've just come off filming, for people who don't know about Alpha, you've just come off filming a pretty small project.
local
just
project.
a little thing. So you were you exec producing on this thing? What was your role? So there's a whole new Alpha Youth series that's coming out, which we'll talk about more. But talk to us about that project.
Yeah, so a series producer. So I worked hand in hand with Dan Blythe, who you guys know really well.
Yep.
He heads up Alpha Youth globally. He and a guy called Steve, working with our production partner, Signal Flare Productions out in Malaysia, an incredible team.
Amazing.
An absolutely outstanding group of men and women kind of chasing after God. And they've been our kind of partners for about 2 years. But Dan and I, we've actually been on the project since I joined, so for about 3 years.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So obviously huge project. We were down there in Melbourne with you guys for that day, and just like on that set was it's just another level, man. Like just another level. Like
it was fun.
I mean, budget's huge.
Yes.
You know, just I guess like I've been in this for a while and I'd never been on a set like that. It was like, and you know, not many sets are like that.
Crazy.
On this massive volume, and you got a crew of 80. It was pretty cool. But what outside of the filming and just the creation of the content, there was a lot of research that went into like tell us more about, I guess a lot of the audience don't know about Alpha. Tell us why did Alpha do this series? What's it built for? And what went into kind of the prep
Yeah,
for
like,
it?
what was your role in the whole thing? Because you said like for 3 years.
Yeah.
This is all you've been doing.
Yeah.
But the filming was like a couple of months.
Well, yeah. So maybe if I kind of start now and move backwards. So we did principal photography with our hosts, a group of 7 amazing young people, aged, I guess Rocco was 19 at the time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, the oldest, possibly Danielle, 24. We did that for about 5 weeks out down your way in Australia. An amazing studio in Melbourne. But we had been filming stories for maybe the 4 or 5 months preceding that, and then Vox Pops like the 4 or 5 months preceding that.
Vox Pops are like street talks.
Street interviews.
Yeah, like street interviews, yep.
Yeah. So, just in terms of production, we were technically going for about a year, off and on.
And how many different countries as well during that time?
Oh, good question. I wasn't at every single story shoot, but I think in total we hit 16 countries.
Yeah,
That's
crazy,
wild.
man.
Yeah. So, complete team effort. I think probably at the height of it, we maybe had 3 pods kind of going at one time. So Steve Chow, he's executive producer and director. He would lead a team, and then Sean J, Jester the Son, he's series producer on the Signal Flare side. He'd lead another team, and then oftentimes they'd have another producer leading another team, kind of all going at the same time. But anyway, yeah. So principal photography in May and June. Filming, 9-12 months before that, pre-production development. But the thing that Dan and I kind of actually maybe spent most of our time and energy, especially in that first year and a half, was the whole reason for me getting hired was we weren't greenlit at the time. So I was hired, my first remit was to get the project greenlit with Dan. So that involves
Just get the money, get the approval,
get the approval,
backing.
like cost benefit, like why do we want to do it? I think everybody was aware that there'd been, a certain amount of time from the last series, the pioneers of it, Ben Woodman and Jason Ballard, they'd been involved with Alpha Youth for years and years and years. They did the first series in 2014, 2013, and then did the second version, bit of a refresh of that same series in 2016. So if you imagine from 2016, 2017 through to now, 2024, there hadn't been any major relook at the series and the content. So yeah, the objective that we was set initially is why should we do it? Everybody, it's easy to say, let's make something new. It's much harder to say this is why we should do it, how we should do it.
A justifiable reason to spend
that amount of money.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
So spending all that time with Dan, one of the first things that we did was kind of finish up a research study with Barna. Looking at the reaction that young people had to the Bible, to Jesus, and to doing good in the world. That informed a lot of our mindset and approach and creative focus for this series. Because amongst many, many things, the few kind of key things it told us were that whereas maybe the assumption of this kind of emerging generation of young people were that they're incredibly closed off, that isn't very true. They're very open, but just guarded and more aware of their own agency. So you can't just put something in their face and say, this is 1 + 1 = 2, and not give them any reason why.
And I feel like they can almost sniff out BS way better than we can as millennials. Like I feel like we kind of fell for anything, you know, like, oh, that guy's so cool, the Hollywood stars, but they don't fall for that stuff anymore, man.
No,
they don't care.
No, and we were a generation of searchers.
Yeah,
like we were a generation of natural explorers. You know, kind of the kids of.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, like the kids of Gen X. You know, we were the first ones without the real burden of anything to do with, you know, the post war come down and, you know, some of the stuff that our parents went through in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
We had none of that burden, whereas we still had the same appetite, but without the same feeling of responsibility and weight. For us, it expressed itself in existentialism, in, this is all futile, I need to find meaning in something. Whereas what we've been finding with the emerging generation is that they're so aware of how interconnected everything is. We all are, they all are, their experiences are. So whilst they may speak different languages, like different things, hate different things, they're so quick to find commonality. So anyway, in going for this series, one of the things we needed to do with all of that listening, not just with the Barna study, but we listened to churches, we listened to youth leaders, we listened to diocese leaders from every kind of corner of the church, every
because if people
denomination.
don't know, Alpha expands across all denominations, the Catholics,
100%.
everybody.
That's the aim, anyway.
Which is great. Sorry, keep going.
No,
just for our non-alpha nights.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Because I know, like,
the
non-alpha nights. Because I feel like, you know, when I introduce my crew to the alpha world, it's like they're like, what?
This is a lot.
This, you know, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So just to give a little bit of a context.
Yes.
Yep.
So, and to your point, the intention of Alpha is to be, as the fancy word is, ecumenical, to be as widely used as possible. So yeah, we some of the takeaways that we had is we needed to show the experiences of young people whilst trying to communicate the gospel. So a lot of our stories are younger, our contributors are younger, and not for the sake of going young, but for the sake of trying to bring this emerging generation alongside others that are going through the same things, experiencing the same things, asking the same questions, and letting them explore together instead of just, you know, a bunch of, you know, well-meaning 30 or 40-year-olds kind of telling them. Let some of their peers show them.
Was there some things in that journey actually, like, it's actually awesome that you did so much research, because I feel like especially when you're going to do a creative project, so much as the creative's in charge of making it, you can put your own, like, this is what it needs to look like. Were there things during that time which you were like, we weren't even thinking that?
100%. So it wasn't until we'd especially got Signal Flow involved that we really started thinking about, like, the form and the function of the series. The early ideas we had is maybe, like, you know, 2 or 3 hosts, maybe 4 classic kind of pieces to camera. And again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. We just film that all day.
100%.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, but
it has its place. It serves its function, and when it's the right tool for the job, amazing. But it doesn't allow for a lot of narrative, and it also doesn't allow
story.
It doesn't allow for a lot of story, and it doesn't allow for that many empathic moments, which is something else that we found kind of doing all this talk and research, is that they're so ready and willing to listen, but just wanting to hear from people's experiences, not just theology in detail. So a big change that we made actually is, so like you said, for a lot of people that don't know, with Alpha, the whole, the point and intention is to try and create space for conversations about life, faith, meaning, and purpose. You start with a moment of hospitality, kind of bring everybody to the table. Everybody's welcome. An opportunity to kind of connect before going into anything else. You either watch or go through some content together and then have a discussion about what's been said. Something that we realized is that if we wanted this emerging generation that they're so used to slice of life content that draws you into the actual experiences, feelings, emotions, reactions.
Slice of life. I haven't heard that. Have you heard that?
Yeah, slice of life content.
I like that.
That's
yeah.
We found, we could do that maybe with the stories to be as personal as possible, try and show them from the contributor's vantage point. But for the actual host signposting, we thought, okay, actually, why not mirror the experiences that they're having in the room with a group? Which is why the idea came about of having actually, a group of young hosts, a group of what we hoped people that would become friends for a more natural connection, to mirror conversation and exchange. But that was tricky because that also meant that by definition, we at least thought it wouldn't be right to find people that were completely trained, completely able, and were hosting. We actually wanted to find younger people that were knowledgeable about their faith, secure in their faith, willing to talk about it, but came across a bit more natural,
like almost conversational, like
exactly.
rather than presenty.
Yeah, which is hard because, like, you guys know this better than me. You put 6 people in a room, turn a few cameras on, it automatically gets awkward. It gets a bit squeaky.
Even right now.
Yeah.
Like, nah. I feel great.
Nothing worse than a camera.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Man.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I even remember, like, sorry to throw you under the bus. We turned the camera on the other day.
Yeah.
And because Josh and I are so used to being behind the camera.
100%.
And we're like, man, we're doing this Kingdom Creatives thing. We want to get on podcast. And I turn the cameras on and Josh is just like, it takes a minute. I'm
Straight
like,
back,
all right, we need to just like, let's go have a break.
I made a tea.
Yeah, we went and made a tea. And it's like, we came back and he's like,
great.
okay, I'm good. But that's
sure.
what cameras automatically do. But I also feel like even the next generation are so used to,
Yes.
I mean, like, we kind of came into these in high school, but I feel like, the emerging generation,
They've lived with it their whole lives.
they grew up with it.
100%.
And so, like, for them, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
I did have a question, though, to your point. Like, was there, with the host or with the whole experience, was there any conversation around what the church is or isn't doing for this emerging generation in terms of, like, back in the day, you could get away with not having epic digital experiences at church. But I don't know whether you can get away with that now.
No.
Was there any conversation around what the church is doing in the digital space, in the media space, and all that kind of thing?
A little bit. I'd say that mostly came about when we spoke to, and we can't take credit for this at all. It definitely came from the feedback in talking to youth leaders, in talking to pastors, youth pastors, diocese leaders.
Worldwide,
yeah. Them communicating that there was such a lack of faith-based content, not just at a particular level in terms of creative execution, but just
anything,
just expression, like any kind of varied expression beyond what people would expect, from this medium. So that was really eye-opening, because what that told us is, if young people are so used to, and again, this is from incredibly talented but very direct to consumer, to use that phrase, YouTubers, or maybe like self-made content creators that put such a high level of content out there for everyday consumption. For us to have the assumption that we can't do, or we shouldn't put that same level of ingenuity and thought into content about the gospel, that blows my mind. Like, I don't understand why that is
crazy.
even a consideration.
so many thoughts,
bro. Like, it's the good news.
Yeah, it's so true.
But we're screaming it from the corner of a windowless room.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so true, man.
And again, the Lord moves as He moves, but one of the mandates we've been left with is to amplify His message, like, go to all corners of the earth. And what does that mean in this day and age? get the message as far, as wide as possible, and in ways that directly speak to the intrinsic storyteller in everyone. Whether they see themselves as a creative or not isn't really the point. I think there's a reason why most people, not everybody, most people connect with good story, narrative.
And I'd say everybody.
I
mean, some
level,
more
right?
than others.
Right.
Like some of us love it enough to do it as a career, but like
100%.
I would say everybody is a good sucker for a story.
Agreed.
I mean, you get somebody into a movie and it's a great story, and it's everybody in that room is hooked in different ways,
Yeah,
and it
for
speaks
sure.
in different ways. We're gonna say something.
Yeah. No, just to that point of like the story. It's like, I think it's just the matter of maybe we're not trying hard enough to reach people to the stories that they would interest them. You know what I mean? Like not everyone has the same interest in stuff, but story moves everyone at the end of the day. So it's just like finding those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just presenting it I think there's a difference between that classic language that's maybe gotten a bit lazy within the church at the moment of a light show for light show's sake. There's a difference, I feel, between bragging creatively and having a genuine intention to speak to the heart of someone's inner storyteller, and to speak to things that they're going through, and to speak in a way and in a form that would maybe not break down, or of course we can't do the work of the Lord, but to at least soften a heart to the point of being receptive.
100%. I think story does that, in my opinion, better than anything. And like we just off camera before, we're talking about, this emphasis on worship music. Now, I couldn't tell you the amount of times I've sat in the car crying to worship
Daily.
songs. It speaks to me. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, story does the same thing.
100%.
Visual story does the exact same thing. And if not
100%.
more, do you think, why haven't we put as much emphasis? Look, some churches do a great job. Some agencies do a great job. But why haven't we put as much emphasis on media visual storytelling to move people than we have on worship music? Because like the top of the the top of the chain or the ladder would be to write an album or like get on a worship team or like sing on stage, which is great. I love it all. It's amazing. I'm not trashing it. But at the bottom of the barrel is like doing camera at church, or like can you go film this piece to camera? Or can you go ahead and do this? It does seem a bit like throwaway.
Like sometimes the graphic designer hasn't graduated from just making a church flyer.
You know what I mean? Like
that's all they're
like. Why don't we?
Yeah.
So like, what are your thoughts around that in terms of like, why haven't we done that, or how can we do that better?
That's a really sensitive topic.
It is.
I have many thoughts. Most of them aren't well considered, so bear with me.
Yes.
We'll get there.
Feel free to think out loud on this very public podcast.
It's not like
Literally yesterday I was thinking.
I'm just gonna get shared to everybody I know.
We will be collabing with you on these posts. So. Deny.
You know what's interesting? Like I've got like a pretty interesting perspective being involved on the music side, because whilst being in the industry, a lot of my time doing music professionally was doing work with faith artists, with Christian artists, or with churches, with worship leaders, like blah blah blah. I think that, and bearing in mind, it's still an issue or point of contention in some expressions of church that maybe still don't view worship.
True. Yeah, I'm talking from a very Pentecostal.
From kind of
evangelical background. Yes.
From our vantage point, anyway. I honestly think it's because, or at least some of it's because of the fact that you can draw some kind of biblical tether from musicianship and musical expression to the ways of God.
Yeah, like directly, you can. Yeah,
like all the way from
Psalms, everything.
Like Psalms, the Levites,
true.
David. Like there's enough meat on that bone, so to speak,
to correlate directly.
Yes, and for those maybe especially in positions of of leadership and ministry, to find it, to justify an outlay, investment, encouragement, scaling up of worship, of music. Whereas, even though some would argue design has been there as long as humans have been able to draw, but there isn't that same biblical tether. It isn't as easy a conversation to have, or at least you can't point directly to a Bible verse to be like, oh no, but look, Levites leading out the army of God, right? Like the golden ratio.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think similar to the way that a lot of music was viewed up until maybe the last 10 or 15 years, there isn't a value placed on creative expression, non-traditional creative expression, as an act of worship.
Yeah.
Which it is.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Like it's in direct response to something that God has placed in you. Whether that you feel that comes naturally as a gifting, or maybe it's an instinct or a spark that you've
love that.
You've been you've been obedient enough to foster.
Yeah, wow.
All of it's worship. And I think that's actually the key. The fact that maybe, somebody designing a flyer, like we've been saying, designing the slide, like operating the camera, directing like a live stream, that isn't seen as worship.
Yeah.
And I believe it is.
Can I say as well, I'm very careful with my words.
Go there.
Directing or filming a live stream. Sometimes we put people who are creative on a camera to do what we want them to do. But maybe they should be painting.
Buzz.
Maybe they should be making pottery. Maybe they should be, you know what I mean?
100%.
And so I feel like what we do is we go, okay, they're creative, so they either film on a camera and a live stream or sing in the choir or play in the band, and tell me what you guys think. But I feel we almost don't know what to do with creatives in the church.
No.
Because it's like, well, I need to fit them in a box, but sometimes they express so differently in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And so I've found, even when we were running a church, I was like, oh, you're creative, you can film this thing for me, or you can take that photo, or you can jump on sound. But I remember I remember one vivid time, and I won't say his name, but a guy in our church, and like very talented musician. And we needed a sound guy at the time. So I put him on sound, but it killed him.
Right.
And I remember really feeling like this is not right. And then got him to start writing music, and it just took off.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, oh, I actually need someone on sound, so I'm going to put him on sound. But that's obviously not where he was creatively worshiping God.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I feel, what do you guys think? Like I feel,
where are you gonna put a creative writer?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, I love writing poetry and stuff, and like that's something from God. It's like that's not really a serve role we use every Sundays, but they end up in the creative team. It's like so designed about like that balance so hard.
Yeah, kind of trying to fit creatives within the framework that we've set for our Sunday to Sunday. And maybe because some of it centered so much about making church happen, as opposed to a group of like-minded individuals doing life and faith together, and seeing where expression can lead that. To your point, that creative writer, if they were just given a space, maybe a couple hours a month to just write out or try and translate or encapsulate whatever they've been praying about, or whatever they've been talking to the Lord about recently, and that was given as a piece on a Sunday, or
imagine if that expression was then given to like the guy who was passionate about making videos,
right?
And then they're like, oh my gosh, I just had a dream the other night about this video I made about this exact thing. Let's go and film it.
And then suddenly it's a visual piece that maybe acts as an evangelistic tool, or maybe acts as like a point of healing for those maybe finding some kind of resonance in the content.
Man.
Like
Goosebumps.
It's
I love it.
Honestly, it's just this is a strong word.
Use it. Use it.
It's is laziness.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I think I agree.
It's laziness. And like there's no malice intended.
No, it's not. It's not. No one's meaning.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like there's no intention to demean or restrict or make everything about like the Sunday operation, but just taking a beat to just think on, okay, I know this person, or if you don't know this person, get to know that person, and then figure out maybe where, like how their heart sings.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
100%. Or like, or even find those people who are passionate like us about fostering environments for creatives within the church.
Yes,
and get them to run creative nights or do something. And I think there's a lack of just like getting the right people in the right positions.
Yes.
You know, and like that's hard to do. Like we're on set right now. I'm very good at like making sure the cameras are good to go, making sure our light's good and everything. But if someone comes in and wants to put a plant somewhere, I have no idea, you know? So I've got to find the right people to like direct those people to do that. And so I do understand that's hard to do if you don't think like that.
Yeah.
When you were talking about expression, our church here in Dallas, when we're here, do like a connect with God evaluation. And then they give you like your 3 ways that you connect with God the best.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's really fun. And one of them is creation. When I'm out in creation, I did this, and another one's worship, but another one is expression. And it says this, I wanted to read it because I think it's really good. It says, you connect with God through expression. When you express through creativity, you are beholding your creator and reflecting his image. You feel the closest to God when you are able to commune with him while creating something, whether it is through writing, drawing, painting, playing an instrument, dancing, filming, editing, styling, or anything else. This is how you have conversation with the Lord. You may create during your encounter with God or after you have heard from him. When you create, you can slow down to hear God and catch the revelatory gifts he wants you to partner with.
That's so cool. That's beautiful.
Now there's so much
awesome.
more to that, but you know, when I read that, I went, yes. And you know, this is when it sparked this whole Kingdom Creatives thing. I'm like, we need to do more here.
And just to say that resonates so much with me because sometimes I find it really difficult to communicate. I find it easiest to pray when I'm playing the drums. I find it easiest to and hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying I can't do it any other way. I find myself most at home being with my Father when I am playing the drums.
Wow.
Regardless of how rubbish literally I may sound because I haven't done it in a while, or most of the pivotal spiritual moments in my life are centered around a time of worship, and specifically me worshiping in that way, whether on a big stage or not, whether in like a practice room, whether I'm just kind of jamming for myself, or so that resonates with me a lot.
I'm going to send you that because there's a lot more in that.
That's so cool.
It's I think it's like, it's really cool because I know sometimes I could be sitting there in the past editing. Man, and editing can suck. Preach.
Yep.
But sometimes I'm sitting there and I cry when I watch what I'm editing because the story is speaking to me. And I was like I remember one very clear time I was like, thank you, Lord, that you have like allowed me to be a part of this project that I was working on. Right. And I remember just clicking buttons, editing, creating a story. But I remember just being so thankful, you know, and it just led me closer to the Father. So I can fully, and I do that through walking on the beach or singing as well,
100%.
you know, all of that stuff. But it's not just those things. There's so much more, you know. What do you think? How do you connect with the Lord as a creative?
Yeah, it's like I've said that before. It's like I think it's also that the disconnect you sometimes find is like music, worship, and stuff. It's like it is. The act of that creativity is worship in the moment, but it's like sometimes with other creative fields, it's like it is actually like 90% a grind. You know what I mean? Like the late night editing, filming, 12-hour days or whatever. It's like even like the monster project you've been working on for years. You know what I mean? It's like that you haven't been like on your knees like, oh Lord, like the whole time. You know what I mean? Like,
thank you, Lord.
Yeah, like it isn't just like everyone's getting shadooshked when you're walking in. Like nothing's been. That's why it took 3 years. No one got anything done. Just slain in the spirit. Nah.
Can you imagine just walking into an editing room and everyone's just laid out?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's happened.
That'd be pretty cool.
And it's like. That thing, it's like, but once it's done, that weight of that expression, you can see it. And then it's also, you're like sharing that with so many more
seeing
people.
other people connect with the Lord through that is like so special, man.
It's such a powerful thing because it's just that like, it's not like delayed gratification, but it's kind of that like the final product is this piece of art that just is there. And it lasts
It exists.
like they had to use the sculptors and everything back
and it reflects his glory. Like it's so cool. It's like
Yeah.
being able to reflect his glory is so good. I got one more question for you. What can the church do to connect with the next generation? Now we're talking through the lens of creativity right now, you know, but what can the church do? We are, okay, whether we like it or not, we're living in a digital age.
For
AI, screens,
Yes.
not going anywhere. AR, VR, XR, all the stuff, right?
Yeah, man.
Sam, can you ask that question again? Just the background just flicked.
That's okay. Yeah, it's good. What can the church do? Like, some churches do it well, some churches don't. Just while you think about that, we did an interview with a Catholic priest who is massive on 150,000 followers on social media.
Yeah.
Do you know who we're talking about?
Father Rob. Galea.
Father Rob.
And
he's in the youth series.
Yeah.
Oh, is he? Oh, of course, yeah. So we did some stuff with him, and
Father Rob's
I remember thinking, okay, so if a father can do this, we can all do this.
Yeah.
And that's not a shred on the Catholic Church, but they've just traditionally been, you know,
Like
late to the
diverse,
party with that. So what, if he can do it, we can all do it. What can the church do to connect with this next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that? Creatively, media, and in tech.
I think creatively, taking risks. And by that I mean and like you said, it's harder said than done, because I would argue it's actually a bit of a gifting for someone in leadership to have the wherewithal to be able to empower creativity in other people. But assuming that can even happen, it still requires a bit of risk to not just empower that person, but let them go and express themselves. And then also take risks with how widely we try and communicate that message. The perception, at least what we've noticed with emerging generation, is that they are so in tune with not just what you say, but how you said it, why you've said it, when you've said it, and who you're saying it to. Sometimes we can be a little bit closed off with in how we communicate as Christians and as the church to those outside of the church. To almost kind of break down that imaginary barrier between us and them, open up that line of communication, and be okay with what comes back.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
You know, and allow that to become much more of an exchange creatively, so that, you know, there's something we've put out there that we might think or say, or others would say, that's a bit much, that's a bit too Christian or not Christian enough, or you know, let's stay within this box right here because we know this message has worked before, done in this way, so let's just do that again, maybe with a slightly different wrapper. But I think they're so willing to give things a chance. They're just waiting for us to be honest, expansive, and risky with how we communicate creatively.
What kind of risk can they take?
Allowing the 17-year-old that hasn't had pastoral training, let them run lights. Or, you know, the 65-year-old that maybe is a writer in their spare time.
I love that, man. I love that.
Let them write a piece that maybe goes on the church website, or just opening more and more doors to more and more people. And again, it's not about giving permission. It's just providing space and saying, no, come in. This space is for you to create too. And giving people the acknowledgement that their expression, what they bring, is valuable and is valid.
I love that.
Awesome.
Any thoughts?
They're great. Everything he said.
What's going on in that little brain of yours?
No, I just love it. That's it. Yeah, I'm like, it's so good.
I'm just trying to. I love your thoughts because you're very. I asked Josh the other day. I said, "How do you and your wife fight?" Because
that is a great question.
And he goes, "Well, I go and we write things down, then we come back together." Because he needs to collect his thoughts. Me, I say it and spray it. I get in trouble.
That's such a good idea, bro.
Yeah, isn't it? Well, I would never do that, but I mean, if you're like that,
yeah.
I'm just like, ooh. Okay, we're good, babe. Let's go. But no, but the reason I keep coming back to you is because I know that you take a minute to collect your thoughts, and I think you have, like, what's going on in your brain in terms of like the creativity in the church and all the things we're talking about.
It's like everything.
Taking risks, all this stuff.
Everything's been said. It's like, it's that 2-part as well. It's like I heard Tim Ross say it once, how he's like, we find that painter down the street who's got an art gallery, and then we try and fill them in a role within our thing. But like, you got to worship God here. Yeah. But they're like, they are worshiping the God down the street in his gallery, is what he says, because he's painting for God. That is it. Yeah,
I love that.
So there's that one part to it, but then it's for those other people that don't have that space. And it's like that genuine thing, like you're kind of referring to like before, of like, actually having that space for them to come and create. Like, it's way easy for someone to get up and say, everyone's welcome here, anyone can come to the creative thing, but then we don't know what to do. You know what I mean? So it's actually like that intentionality of like, hey, if we are going to open this up to creative writing, we're going to open it up to it. And like, the risk there is like, some of it might not be good.
Yeah, it might be crap.
Rubbish.
And then it comes out like maturity and responsibility to guide that person, to sit with them and put that effort in of like, hey, we've got a 17-year-old who's not going to be good. Who's like, when I was 17, I'm making trash.
Or they're freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, they're phenomenal.
And it's like, why don't we do this earlier?
You just need to point them in a direction.
Exactly.
Like they're going.
So it's it's that willingness, point them or like walk with them, run with them. It's like, there's a lot to it. Yeah.
Very insightful, man. Look, we don't have too much longer, so I just want to say thank you so much for jumping on. This is just part one. Part two, we'll do it in London.
Sounds good, man.
Yeah, we'll do part two.
100%.
Under the Big Ben.
Yeah, under the Big Ben.
It's not that busy there, is it?
Hey, that'd be a pretty sick podcast though, in front of the Big Ben.
That would actually.
But bro, thank you so much for jumping on and hanging out. And just want to say you've done an incredible job with the series. I cannot wait for people to see it. And actually, lastly, what's next? Like, the series is done. What's next?
I have absolutely no idea.
Take a holiday
to Australia.
You know what? That would actually be so fun. So,
well, I guess you spent a lot of time there for the series.
No, we did, but we loved it. So my wife was there for one of the weeks.
Oh, that's right.
We had a great time.
Yeah.
So actually, we joke, but no, that would
probably
be
come
great.
back. Yeah. Well, man, it's great to have you. Thank you so much, and just appreciate your time, bro.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
The kingdom creates.